Welcome back to Down to Business with V. I'm your host, V, and today we have in studio with us via Zoom, Daniel Gorlovetsky. He is the founder and CEO of TLV Tech, based out of the Middle East. Daniel, thank you so much for being with us. We are excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, V. I'm very excited.
Yes. Daniel, we talked in our preliminary conversation about the startup process, and you gave a masterclass during that phone call. Tell our audience a little bit about that startup process, because we'll be talking to entrepreneurs and business owners that might be somewhere in that process of either at the startup process or in one of those unique positions that you talked about during our conversation. Tell them what that process looks like, and then let's talk about the roadmap for capital in that.
Sure. So when you think startups, you mostly think innovation, right? You want to invent something, you want to bring a new concept to the world. The first thing you want to do is you want to validate that this concept is actually needed, right? And at this point, we do something called a POC, a proof of concept. Right? This can be even this is before even building a product. This is before going into tech. It's just validating that what you're trying to bring to the table is actually needed, right? So it can be done from surveys, from speaking to your potential clients, from even doing a very quick PPC campaign and seeing if there's any traction or any value in that. But that's the first step. This is point one, right? Step, right? And this is called a POC. This is you're doing before even getting emotionally involved into the product or into the company. The next step, assuming that you have the traction you wanted and assuming you have some more, or say you're positive about this approach or this concept, then you go into something called an MVP. MVP is a minimum viable product. It means that you build the very minimum product you can afford or you can build at this point, just to test out the specific thesis, right? So let's say we're thinking about Uber for dogs, right? We want to, of course, validate this idea, right? Then we want to go into MVP. So we think our potential customer, right? Is it going to be a 20-year-old male or a 35-year-old female? Where are they coming from? What's their kind of a family size or what's their habits? We think about that. And then we say, all right, let's think that our biggest value comes to 35-year-old female, right? Why? Because they have no time on driving their pets, right? At this point, we position our company and the product to be very specific to that audience, right? It means branding, colors, logos, flow. Everything is very much focused on that audience. And then we build out the single feature, right? Something very small that can really provide the value that we're looking for. Again, just to get some more validation, right? So if we spoke about validation in the POC stage, let's say there's a scale of 0 to 100, how much you're sure that your product is needed in the market. So after the POC, you're at about 25, 30% assurance, right? With the MVP, you're able to go a bit higher to 50, 60%. And then once you have that MVP, which needs to be very fast, in our company, we say that every MVP, or there is no MVP that can't be built under 90 days. So to keep it very, very minimal. After the MVP, you typically go to capital, right? To actual capital. You might raise capital before that, but after MVP, what comes is the seed round. And this is typically somewhere in the $1-digit $1 million investments or rounds. And that really means you're in business now, right? You have your thesis, you're validated it, you build something very small, very chunky, and now it's time to actually build a product and to offer it to the world. So this is considered to be early stage startups, right? Then you have growth stage startups. This means that good news, you're onto something. The crowd loves it, right? The audience loves it. You might even have some clients, some paying clients at this stage. and you really want to go into the market, right? You want to advertise, you want to build your sales organization, your marketing, your business development, think about partnerships and additional revenue streams, and really to kind of double down on your offensive side, right? We like to refer to it like in soccer. You have the offensive side, which is the marketing and sales and biz dev. Then you have midfielders who are account executives, project managers, and management. And then you have the defensive side who are the tech people, right, the developers. So in round A, B, and C, these come after seed round. This is the growth stage of your company, and you're mostly focused on launching very fast and expanding your offensive side. Finally, you have late-stage startups, and that's typically when the company is very mature. You typically, when you raise capital, if you need it at all, you typically raise in the 3-digit million and even above that. You typically have an organization of at least a few hundreds of people, typically on the higher side. And that's when you really think strategically. There's no like one size fits all at this stage, because you're really typically competing with the giants, or you are the giant, and you really need to think about how to position yourself in the market, how to keep innovating, how to keep that agility, right? We typically like to think about it like boats, right? When you just start, you're a speedboat, right? You can maneuver, you can do anything very fast. At some point, you become more like a yacht, right? You can't really maneuver too much. You're pretty heavy, pretty solid. But still, we need to remember that the world is very dynamic, and especially when dealing with innovation, competitors can launch, very fast, and they can maneuver very fast. I think that the best example I have right now is OpenAI. Of course, how can we do this talk without speaking about what happens there? There's so many competitors. You have you have OpenAI, which is a relatively new company, right? They were not a giant, and now they're part of Microsoft, who are a giant, right? And then there was the CEO kind of novel, I guess, of firing them and then hiring him back. It's a very complex issue. And then on the flip side, you have other smaller companies, companies like Anthropic and other smaller ventures who were launching the competitor for OpenAI. And lastly, you have the other tech giants working on their own solutions. So you have Facebook or Meta, right, working on Llama, and then you have Google working on Bard. So it's like a race, right? It's a race, and whoever gets first really conquers the market. So maybe it's a bit of a different example than early stage startups, but like we all understand there is a revolution going on right now in generative AI, and AI becomes like something very significant in our lives. Whether you're a tech company or a non-tech company, whether you're brick and mortar or a digital space, it doesn't really matter, right? Because AI impacts everyone. And this is like maybe the most popular example or scene, right, that has to do with the dynamicness and the agility inside the tech space.
Wow. When I tell you, MasterClass, early, mid, late stage startups, and then we look at the big giants that you talked about, like Facebook Meta and OpenAI, which is newer, but still, cornering the block. So, wow, Daniel, when I tell you, like, the amount of knowledge just in that little soundbite is going to help so many people with their startup process.